All right, now picking an exam question from Cambridge, and we try the questions just to cement the understanding of the few things that we have talked about. Before I proceed, may I get confirmation from the class if you are able to hear me and you can see the screen?
Yes.
Okay. So this is a question paper that we are looking at, and there is a specific question number that I want us to consider as we cement our understanding, okay, of the errors, rectification of the errors. Okay. A very good question it is indeed. And so the question number is 3 and it is reading, okay, is a trader and she has prepared a trial balance at 31st March 2023. So the totals did not agree and the difference was placed in a suspense account. So she later discovered the errors shown in the following table. So this is a sole trader and is preparing an account at the end of the period. And then as they try to balance up the balances, finding that the trial balance did not balance or did not agree. And then the suspense account was opened to correct the errors. Okay. So these errors are the errors that affect the agreement of the trial balance. Remember, we talked about different types of errors, okay? There are those errors that affect the agreement of the trial balance and those that don't affect the agreement of the what? Of the trial balance. Some errors that don't affect the agreement of the trial balance. This is what happened. Let's see now, what is it that happened? We'll go through the errors. This is what we are required. We are required to complete the table. That is here by showing the entries required to correct each error. The first one has just been done for us. Okay. And let me read the example that has been done for us. A payment for rent of $300 had been debited to the insurance account. There is a payment of rent worth $300 that had been debited to the insurance account. You see, you debit the wrong account. Remember, this is a payment. You are paying for rent. Instead of paying, putting in the rent account, then it occurred in such a way that you had to record in the wrong account, which is the insurance account. We know both of them are expenditure accounts, but this is the wrong account. If you're paying for rent, you have to record in the rent account, not to record in the wrong account. And so the example has been done that to correct this error, you have to do what now? You have to debit the rent account and credit the insurance account. You had debited the insurance account. Now you have to remove the money from the insurance account by crediting it. So we credited the insurance account and debited the rent account, for it is the one that is scheduled to the receipt of the amount. Okay. So this is how it shall be done for this. You just have to show us the account that is being credited and the other one that is being debited. And I am now reading part number 1. Mr. Paul, are you able to read for us the transaction underlined? Are you in a good position to read?
The one that says credit sales.
Yes, go ahead.
Credit sales to Raymond of $105 had been debited to the sales account and credited to Raymond's account.
Okay, thank you for the reading. So there are these credit sales to Raymond. You sold to Raymond on credit. This is what it means. Okay. And this had been debited to the sales account. You sold to Raymond on credit. When you sell on credit, what do you do? Okay. You sold to Raymond. So Raymond was receiving in this case. So Raymond is supposed to be what? To be debited, right? Because he received the sales. So his account needed to be what? To be debited. But instead of debiting his account, Raymond's account, it occurred in such a way that we credited the sales account. Oh, we debited the sales account, sorry. We had to debit the sales account. So the correct entries would be, what would be the correct entries? Anybody? I'm explaining that we sold to Raymond. Raymond received. So for Raymond to receive, it means that it should have been debited. But we debited the sales account. And instead of debiting Raymond, we credited Raymond's account. So the question is, what could be the correct entries? You guys, you're following. You are able to follow. And Zahi, go ahead.
You debit Raymond's account and credit the sales account.
Okay. Thank you very much. So we debit Raymond's account. Okay. So Raymond's account is what? Is debited. Okay. So Raymond's account is debited. Let me just clear the board for us. So Raymond's account is debited. Let's debit the Raymond's account. So Raymond's account is debited with the amount. Okay. Debit Raymond and credit who? Credit which account? Credit the sales account with the amount. Is that clear? Anyone with a question? Write the amount. Write the amount in the column for the amount. Now, you see how we were correcting this error. What kind of error is this one? An error where you do what? You debit the wrong account. That was supposed to be what? To be debited. Sorry, you debit the wrong account. The account that was supposed to be credited, you debit it. And that one that was supposed to be debited, that was supposed to be credited, you debit it. Like you do the opposite entries. So in other words, you were supposed to give money to Raymond, but you removed the money from Raymond. So what do we do to record the amount? I talked about the error of complete reversal. You remember the error of complete reversal of entries. I talked about it, how you correct it. I told you that instead of giving money to Raymond, okay, 105. We removed money from Raymond, from his account in error, okay? So how do we correct the transaction? What amount do we record here? Anybody? Turn on your mic. Guys, don't have to forget like this. Huh? You don't have to. Anyways, I said that you have first of all to give back Raymond his money that you credited him. That is 105. And then give him the sales. So you multiply this amount by 2, giving you 210. So record 210 and credit the sales account with 210. Is that clear now? Hello, is that clear? Like you are supposed to receive money. Then instead of you receiving the money, people have removed the money from you. How do you correct that error? The first thing, they should give you back your money that they removed from you, and then give you the money that we are supposed to give you, isn't it? So that's why the amount is multiplied by 2, because the first one, you are paying back what you removed from the person in error. Okay? Okay, let's move on to the second transaction. Aisha, would you read for us the second transaction? This one. Read this one that has been highlighted.
Aisha's total drawings from the bank for her own use, $9,500, had been debited to the cash account.
Okay, thank you so much for the reading. All right. So there are some total drawings from the bank for her own use. You are drawing for your own use. 9,500 for your own use. And you debit to the cash account. How do you correct this error? How do you correct this error? Because if you are withdrawing the money from the bank, okay, you guys are not seeing what is happening here. Let me draw for you so that you understand the transaction. There is the bank here. There is the business owner. And there is the cash account for the business. Okay, this is for the business. Are you able to see what I'm writing? Are you following? And the bank account is for the business. You guys are able to see what I'm writing? I want you to understand the transaction.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So now this person, the owner of the business, removed the money from the bank to come to the owner of the business. It did not go to the cash account of the business. You're following? He got it for personal use. If he had gotten it from the bank for the business use again, like you withdraw so that you can use it in the business, it would have gone to the cash account of the business. But you see, it was not the case. So for that very reason, we do not, we cannot debit the cash account. You understand? You cannot debit the cash account because the cash account never received the money. Get that the cash account does not belong to an individual. It belongs to the business. It's for the business. So in this case, since you withdrew money from the bank, okay, but instead of debiting the drawings, you had to debit the cash account. What do you do to correct the error? When you withdraw money for personal use, you are supposed to debit the drawings account, right? But you ended up debiting the cash account. So what do you do to correct this error? Right? Okay. So since in error you debited the cash account, you are supposed now to do what? To credit the cash account, okay? And debit the drawings account because the money was going in the drawings account. So that's what you are supposed to do. Oh. Why did I do this? So anyway, there was Raymond here, 210. Then there was the sales here for 210. There is, we have drawings for 9500. And on the other hand, we have the cash account that is being credited with the same amount, 9,500. Is that clear? Okay. Zaid, read for us the question number that I've highlighted now.
Purchase invoice from Lisa for $137 had been recorded in her account and in the purchase journal at $133.
Sorry, you were low. Would you read that again?
A purchase invoice for the Nika $137 had been recorded in her account and in the purchases journal at $133.
Right, thank you. So this is what has happened, okay? There is a purchase invoice from Danica for $137. It was for $137. You purchased, okay, the invoice with that amount, and it had been recorded in her account in the purchases journal as 173. That was way higher. Like you transposed the figures. This is called the error of what? Transposition. You moved the figures. So how do you correct it? I said you take the difference. The biggest amount minus the what? The lowest amount. Okay. And this gives you the difference of 36. There is a difference of 36. So you're dealing with the difference of what? 36. So in this case, this was a purchase. You purchased goods that were worth what? That were worth 137, but you wrote that they were worth 173, which means the purchases account. Okay, the purchase in the purchases account, you recorded a higher amount, a higher by 36. So to correct the error, you have to reduce that amount by crediting the purchases account. So the purchases account should be credited by 36, meaning you reduce it because it had gone up by 36. And then Danica's account had reduced by the amount, and then you debit Danica by 36. So that is how this is done. Okay. Hash, read the next statement. You can read the next statement. Is Hash in the class? All right, Zahi, read for us the next statement highlighted.
Returns inwards 44 had not been recorded in the returns inwards account.
Okay. There is a returns inward that had not been, recorded, right? Yeah. So what do? You debit the returns inward, isn't it? Returns inward. You debit it, and then which account are you you know, are you going to credit? You don't know the account, so you send to the suspense account because you're not yet sure which account was the corresponding account, right? Send to the suspense account. Let's go to the other transaction. And this one, just a bit, will be read by Paul. Read for us the last transaction.
The motor expense account had been overcast by $100.
Okay. Right. This is very powerful. Okay. You know, the motor expenses account had been what? Had been overcast. Right? It had been overcast by what? It had been overcast by $100. So how do you correct this error? Okay. The motor expenses account is an expense account. It had been overcast. So an expense account is always debited, isn't it? It's the debit entry, but if it had been overcast, to correct the error, you have to record on the opposite entry. So the motor expenses account will go on the credit side, 100. You're crediting the motor expenses because it had been overcast, and we know that the motor expenses account sits on the debit side of the trial balance because it's an expenses account. Then if that is the case, then you have to debit a certain account that we don't know, which is a suspense account. So you debit the suspense account. Debit the suspense account and credit the other account. So just look at when you are correcting this error, like there will be one account that you are aware of. Look at that account, focus on that account, okay? Then what do you do to correct the error to that account? Okay, if that account has to maybe be debited as you are correcting the error, then what account are you crediting? The other account that you don't know, that you're not given in the question, it shall be the suspense account. So you do that to the suspense account, as easy as it is. So far, let me now open for questions to classes. To the class, do we have any questions?
Sir, can you explain again on the second last entry?
Okay, the last one. I was saying that when you look at this, we are just given only one account. We are told that the motor expenses account had been overcast. Okay. By 100. Meaning the motor expenses account was just more. We discovered it had been overcast. It received more. But we are not aware which account it received the money from which account. We don't know. Just know that it had been overcast. So what do you do to correct that? The first thing, if the motor expenses account has been overcast, and we know where the motor expenses account sits, right? We know that it sits on the debit side of the trial balance. I told you that on the trial balance, you debit the assets, you debit the expenses, and you debit the losses. Then on the other hand, you credit all the liabilities, credit capital related issues, and credit the gains or the incomes. That is what you do. Yeah, on the trial balance. So now when you look at the expenses, they belong to the debit side of the account. So it simply means the debit side was higher by 100. So you have to reduce the debit side by 100. What do? You record on the opposite side, you credit the account. When you credit the account, that simply means that you have reduced that amount by that. So once you have done that, you have credited the account, then there should be the other account receiving. Remember the rule of double entry. It communicates to us that when one account is debited, then the other one should go at credited. So now we don't know the account that we're going to debit. We just know what we have credited. So that account is what you call the suspense account. Record in the suspense account. Is that clear? Hello? All right. If you guys are following, then that's well and good. Now, let's look at the other part of the question. The other thing that was required of us doing was to prepare a suspense account. To prepare a suspense account. How do you prepare the suspense account? We already have the entries, so it's very easy. Okay. We are going to take only those errors. Do you remember the errors? Only the 2 errors. Okay. Only the 2 errors that occurred. So if we are going to take only the 2 errors that occurred, that simply means that only those errors that were involving the suspense account will go in this account. So we had the motor expenses account. So we already have this suspense account here. If you remember what we did to the motor expenses account, we said that we credited the motor expenses account in the previous slide. We credited the motor expenses account, which means we debited the what? The suspense account. So the suspense account was debited, okay, in 2023, March, 31st March. You debited the motor expenses account. You debited the suspense account, sorry, with the motor expenses account, because the motor expenses account was the one that you credited. Yeah. You look at what happened to the suspense account in short. Was the suspense account debited? Yes. By which account? It was debited by the motor expenses account. Then again, on the other side, we have the date. We have the returns inward. There was the returns inward that we received. Okay. We had the transaction for the returns inward. That was just a previous transaction for 44. You remember the transaction for 44, the returns inward. Then what you do from here, you balance off the account. There are just the 2 transactions that involve the suspense account. Okay. Not understanding. I'm trying to say that you look at the transaction when first you do the journal entries that involve the suspense account. So when you looked at the returns outward, that transaction, it involved the suspense account being credited, right? You debited the returns inward because the transaction was saying that you had omitted a transaction in the returns inward. So you debited the returns inward. If you debited the returns inward, it means that the suspense account was credited. By which account? By the returns inward. Then when you reach here, you have to balance off the account. So we have just recorded only 2 transactions in here because there were just 2 transactions that involved the suspense account. If we had even 5 or 10 of them that involved the suspense account, we could have recognized them in here, okay? Just like that. So let's record the transactions. 100, 100. The big amount is recorded like this. Then if that is the case, then from there we can balance off the account, right? So we have to balance of the account. Let me write it from here, the returns inward. Returns inward 44. So you balance off the account. How do you balance off the account? Take the difference, and the difference is of 56. So now, this difference, you will not call it the balance brought down or carried down. No, you will call it the difference on the trial balance. This is the difference on the trial balance. You should write in full the difference on the trial balance. So basically, this is how you balance off the suspense account. This is how you balance off the suspense account. There is nothing much that you do. It is just as simple as A, B, C, D. Any questions?